Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. In today's video we were just going to go over some of the questions you guys had and talk about our build, how we come up with the idea of converting a box truck into a tiny house and how exactly we done that. But before we dive into the video, we have a quick announcement to make. And well, you want to just go ahead and tell them?
You can tell them.
You do it.
So we found out in April that I'm pregnant. So I am about 6 months pregnant now, and our baby should be here sometime this winter.
Yep, so we officially have a baby on board. So we're excited about that. We have literally raised 9 baby chicks in here, 2 guinea keats, we had 4 lambs, and we even had a cat in here at one point in time. So if we can raise all those different animals in here and we can make it work in here, then surely we can raise a baby in this place. So just stay tuned and be ready for that journey. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into the video.
So our love for tiny houses started back while we were still dating, and we started really noticing how popular they were becoming on TV shows like Tiny House Nation, and we watched those back around probably 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
So we had talked about it, but it was something that we never really thought, or at least I never really thought that we would end up doing. But Zach decided to buy this truck and surprise me with it before he had even proposed.
Yeah, needless to say, that didn't go over too well. She wasn't too fond of a truck conversion idea and going that route. But the reason I went with the truck and the reason that I went in that direction instead of just going like the conventional trailer for our tiny house build was because whenever I looked into it, one, I didn't have a truck, so I would have to go out and purchase one, which at the time and even now the price of used trucks are just astronomical. Right. And I can't afford that. But also the trailers that you build tiny houses on, I encourage you, if you're interested in it, look it up. Just a regular size trailer, nothing huge or anything like that. We're talking like $5,000, $6,000, even $7,000, and that's just the trailer. So I started looking into other routes I could do for a tiny house. Like we were looking at doing maybe even one of those prefab buildings that you might get at like Lowe's and stuff. We stopped in a couple places and actually looked at them, which that's a whole nother video. And you remember that dude?
I do remember him.
Yeah, that guy was crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, but we looked into that, and then we also we looked at a few different things like shipping containers. Thought about doing something like that, but I still wanted the mobile aspect without like having to invest money in a trailer or a truck, and that's when my brother-in-law gave me the idea for doing a box truck. So I started looking it up and I looked into it, and I found a box truck in Hickory, North Carolina for $3,500. So I've got the truck and I've got the trailer all rolled together into one, and it's for less than what I would have had in buying just a trailer by itself and still have to frame it out and do all the other stuff. So I thought it was a no-brainer. So needless to say, when I found that truck, I drove down there with my brother-in-law. We got it and drove it back, and it was a really good deal in my opinion. But it took a while for her to kind of warm up to the idea, especially when I showed her the truck for the first time. I even took my niece with me as a buffer just so she wouldn't bite my head off.
Yeah, he played that pretty well. But we weren't even engaged at the time, so in my mind I had I'd actually just came back from college. I had transferred colleges and came back home, and so I was just kind of like, I can't tell him anything different. I'm just going to have to let him try and fail and be there to pick up the pieces. And thankfully I was wrong. And Zach built us a beautiful home that we get to raise our first baby in, and so it worked out for the better. I'm glad I was wrong on that one.
I mean, honestly, I can't fault her for feeling that way, because one, if you pull up to someone's house and say, "Hey, I'm going to live in a truck," people are going to think you're crazy. But not only that, if you've never built anything in your life, that's going to make them think you're even crazier. And that was
Right.
my case. I had no experience building anything, and you can ask her. Like, I'm not a carpenter, I'm not a plumber, I'm not an electrician. All this stuff is beyond me, but I had a vision in mind, and I knew that if I had enough time and if I had enough money, I could see it through, and the things that I didn't know I could get help with, and the things that I did know I can put into practice, and I could get the job done. And like she said, thankfully it worked out. And this house, it truly was just a blank slate. I mean, it started out as a mail delivery truck, and then over time, after it got retired from that, it was bought up by like this company that moved furniture. So like it was a furniture delivery truck, and eventually it was bought by an older gentleman who just wanted to resell it, and that's where I picked it up from. So this started out as just a delivery truck, and it had so much potential. The second like we raised up the back and I looked into the truck for the first time, when I stared through it and I seen how long it was and how spacious it was, how wide open, and I even looked up to the loft, and immediately when I looked up into the loft, I'm like, that is the perfect bedroom. Like that's just perfect. So I seen the potential here, and I knew just given enough work that it was going to work out. And that's really whenever I started to kind of throw things together. I sketched down a few different ideas, and Kristen will tell you that not all of my ideas panned out, and this had about 1,000 different layouts before we finally agreed on something.
Yeah,
something worked.
we would agree on a floor plan, and then Zach would come up with another one the next day. So, and even building it, while in the middle of building it, the floor plan changed frequently, just as trial and error, and realizing that certain things wouldn't work out the way that we thought that they would, whether space or functionality. So, I mean, even all the way through the build itself, we truly didn't know how the layout of the house would be.
Yep. And even in some of y'all's comments, people were asking about things like a water tank, or like our black tank or gray tank, or battery storage, stuff like that. I originally had the floor plan laid out to where the floor was elevated and all that stuff was underneath the subfloor, that all of that was up under there. But eventually I ended up just scrapping that and doing what we have now, because I figured we didn't need all that other stuff. That we didn't need like a water tank, because most of the time we're going to be hooked up to just a regular water source, or we didn't need all the batteries because we'd be hooked up to a regular power source. So I scrapped all that, and honestly it worked out for the best anyway, because it really would have altered our floor plan, and I feel like what we have right now makes the best use of the space that is available here in this house. And what I had to do starting out to get everything going is remove all the plywood that was bolted to the walls, and then I had to frame out the entire thing, and I framed it with 2x4s. So super sturdy, super strong. It's bolted directly into the metal frame of the truck itself, so it's held in there very well. And then after I did that, I went through and I began to do things like insulate, and I insulated the entire house with the batten roll insulation R19, so super warm. It does really well. And then finally I did all the plumbing and electrical work, run all the wires, things of that nature. So once I got it to that position to where it was wired, plumbed, and insulated, that's when the fun part really began, and that was where Kristen finally got to step in and have a job, and that was putting up all this beautiful shiplap. She helped me putting the boards up, but her main job, and what I usually get her to do whenever we have a little construction job, she is my painter, and I know she loves painting so much.
Well, I did, and then we got married, and now I hate it. the shiplap is beautiful, and I am glad that we went with it. It gives it a lot of character. It's sturdy. But something that I didn't realize with shiplap is I ended up painting it almost 4 times, because we bought it just as like plain wood and picked out the paint color, painted it, then had to put it up, sand it back down while it was up, caulk, putty, sand it, repaint it, and then after you put it up with the gaps in the middle, started realizing that there was a lot of natural wood that was still showing. So I had a teeny painter's brush and painted every one of these cracks, the top, the middle, and the bottom of them. So I was done by the time we finally got it finished, and I even remember telling Zach, I was like, I dare you to ever suggest we change the color of the walls. This house will stay this color forever because I will not paint it again.
And well, thankfully we're not going to. we are never going to paint the walls in this place, and a lot of that, and that's the reason we went with white anyway. One, it's just a beautiful clean look, and two, it lets in so much more light. And I didn't want to have a ton of windows in this place, one for privacy, and two, just I didn't want to mess with the structural integrity of the walls. But the fact we painted everything white, it lets in so much more natural light. It makes the space feel more open, and it just really helps with the look. So I mean, if someone else wants to move in here and paint it, that's fine, but as far as it goes, neither one of us are ever going to put a paintbrush to this place again.
No, it'll stay this color forever.
Yeah. But once we got the walls up, then we went through and we ended up putting the ceiling up. And the ceiling, it was something that we kind of just splurged on. I originally was going a different route. I was going to use a cheaper material, but we ended up going into Lowe's and we found what was called Wormy Blue Pine Tongue and Groove boards, and they just look gorgeous. So we put those up, and then I again got Kristen to, after the fact, it was just natural, but it just looked like it needed something. So we put a couple coats of poly on the ceiling to really make it pop, and she loved doing that too, especially since she had to get on a ladder and roll it all out.
Yeah, he couldn't have suggested that when it was down on the ground. He had to suggest that after it was already up on the ceiling.
Oops.
So, and we had a lot of the furniture and appliances and stuff in, so I had to lay down tarps, work in a small area, get off of the ladder, move the tarps all the way through the house. So, I mean, it did work out. It made it even more beautiful. It really brought out those warm tones, and that blue really made it stand out. But at the time, I was not very happy about it.
No, she was not happy at all. But honestly, like she said, it worked out really well. And then from there, it was just all the finished work. Just wiring the lights and outlets and things of that nature, putting in cabinets, and just doing all the little finishing touches here and there to make this house a home. And we bought the truck in the summer of 2017, and then we finally got to move in April of 2019. So after 2 years, we finally got to move into the house. And the reason it took so long is because at the time I was working, so the only time I really had available was evenings and weekends, so that made it difficult to get it done. But if someone else wanted to do this build and all they had to do was work on it, you could probably build this in a lot faster time frame than what I did. And I know she was definitely thankful to finally get to move in here. I told her whenever we got married, I was like, 6 months tops, I'll have that done. And we ended up living in my parents' basement for a year, so that made our first year of marriage interesting.
Yeah, between when he bought the truck and when we moved in, we got engaged and got married, and had been married almost a year by the time we moved in. But I mean, like Zach said, it wasn't like he had all the time in the world, and I was a full-time student and working part-time, and he was working full-time, and then we also had responsibilities at the church too, which also cut down on time. So we really had to be very diligent about working and when we could work. And we also made a point to pay as we go.
Yes.
And that caused some time too. Yeah. We didn't want to go and take out a huge loan to pay for this. We wanted to save some after each paycheck or each month, and then we would use that money and say, okay, well, we have this much, we can complete this within the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
So in the long run, it was smart doing it that way. We're not looking at having a huge mortgage or anything like that. And we're essentially 3 years into our marriage, and our house is almost completely paid for.
Yeah, I mean, we only owe probably about, I think, around $3,000 in total on our house. And then once we have that paid off, this house is completely debt-free. We live here mortgage-free, and it's all completely paid for. So doing the pay-as-you-go method, it's going to take a whole lot longer, but it's worth it in the end because you have the finished product without having the debt behind it. So, I mean, it was a struggle, and it took a lot longer than what we wanted, but I think it was definitely worth it going that route.
It was, and if you do this and you want to try to do pay-as-you-go, know that you're going to have times where it's really frustrating because it's not going as fast as you want it to go. And the easy route is to just go and get a loan and pay for it later. But for us, it was important to do pay-as-you-go. That way we knew we would start out our marriage as low in debt as we could.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us into the next thing, because after we finished the house, we lived in it for almost a year, and then we noticed some things really weren't as necessary as we first thought, and then other things just they weren't functional or it just wasn't helpful. So we knew that we wanted to redo some of the stuff. One of the things in particular was the kitchen. If you watched one of our previous videos, we went over the kitchen remodel, talked about how we added in more countertop space, which really helped as far as like food prep and things like that goes, but even storage. We have a giant pantry now. So just doing little things like that really helped out, not only with the looks but with the function of the house. But we also recently redone the bathroom, and one of the main reasons behind that wasn't necessarily because we had to have it just for us, but because we knew we knew with her being pregnant we were going to need more storage. So with the added storage space in the kitchen or in the added storage space of the couch, we also wanted to have more storage space in our bathroom. So we took in that little prefab shower bathtub combo, and we put in a tile shower with built-in storage beside of it, and it just turned out gorgeous.
It did. I'm really glad that we ended up doing that, and we made that decision to remove the bathtub because we really didn't use it enough to that it was worth to even keep. And then we knew that we wanted to start a family, and we also had talked about like what are the chances that we're going to be able to start a family outside of this house, and we knew that we were going to end up being here longer than we had not necessarily planned, but we didn't want the house to hinder us from starting our family. And so when we added that in, it wasn't very long after we added that in that we found out that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So it worked out for the best. It gives us 2 very large shelves that will be able to hold all of the baby's things. And we've used it so far just for ourselves.
Yeah.
But with baby on the way now,
it's already full of baby stuff.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But like she said, they're big shelves. I framed it out with 2x4s, and then the shelf itself is 3/4 inch plywood, so super stout. I mean, you could put whatever you wanted to up there, and it's gonna hold it. So it's gonna work out perfectly for not only our things but also to store and have extra storage for the baby. So that worked out really well too.
Thanks guys for watching today's video. If you have any other questions that we didn't answer in our video, make sure you leave it in a comment and we'll try our best to get back to you. Also, let us know what other videos you want to watch. We have some very interesting things going on, especially with the baby on the way,
Yeah.
and we're already talking about remodeling little parts of the house again. So expect some more videos about that. Hopefully we can get those posted sooner.
Yeah.
But make sure to like and comment and subscribe to our channel.
Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good day. Look at his mustache. Looks god awful. Alright, let's get real. You ready? Let's do
I've been
this.
waiting on you.
Okay, Esmeralda.
That makes you Quasimodo.
I have been called Hunchback before. Dang it, chicken. Daggone chickens in the yard. Don't be like that.
Like what?
Yourself.
Don't be yourself.